Hello, friends, and welcome to Page Chewing Weekly Pulls Pick of the Week, number 15. So, before we get into it, I should probably tell you a little bit about the podcast if you're new to it. Every week, I'm a comic book reader who is coming back to the hobby after a long hiatus, and I pick up some books every week, try to find something that I enjoy, and talk about them on the podcast. Then I discuss whether I will continue reading or not. I'm typically not a huge fan of capes and cowls, but I do read them once in a while, as you'll hear in this episode. So I'm not opposed to them. It's just really not my bag, but I do give them a shot once in a while. Usually it doesn't work out, but I give it a shot. So I've been doing some thinking because this week I had 5 different books, and some weeks I really struggle to find books to read, and some weeks I have a ton of books to read, and it just depends on what's happening and what I find on the shelf. This week I found some books that I was happy with, but nothing that stood out to me. Nothing that I really felt like, wow, this is really great. So I think last week or the previous week, I didn't have a pick for the week. And I don't think I'll have a pick this week, even though there were some books that I enjoyed. Nothing that I really thought was great. And I get it's the pick of the week. You want to pick the favorite book of the week. So if that's the case, there is a book that I enjoyed the most, but I wasn't crazy about it. Didn't want to celebrate it. I didn't feel like crazy enough to celebrate it. So it would be a lukewarm pick of the week, and I don't really want to do that. So I will discuss what I read this week and my thoughts on each one, and we'll go from there. So the first one I picked up was Haunted Girl number 1. This is by Ethan and Naomi Sachs with art by Marco Lorenzo. This is by Image Comics. I hope I didn't butcher that last name. Now this one I hesitated grabbing this book because I'm not a big fan of child or teenage protagonists or stories that involve them, or even like Chosen One type of thing where it's this one person who is the one thing that will make or break the destruction of the planet. Typically not that large scale Chosen One thing I'm usually not a fan of. I did really enjoy the artwork, and I think there's some themes and ideas that has some potential. There's some there's some mental health stuff that's built into this one that I think can be comforting for some people who are struggling, and I think we've all been in that position at some point. So that said, I wasn't the biggest fan of this one, not because it's bad, just because it's not my cup of tea. It's not really for me. It's usually not the kind of story I enjoy. Like I said, the art was solid. It fits the story quite well. I thought the art and the layout fit the story really well. It fit the theme of the story, fit the kind of story that's being told. Unfortunately, it's just not for me. I don't think I'll continue this, even though it's a 4-issue or a 6-issue miniseries. I just didn't enjoy it enough to read it. But I think if you're into those kind of stories, like a teenage protagonist, a drip of horror, some mental health stuff, I think it could be for you. It just wasn't for me. It wasn't something I would continue reading. The next one is Destiny's Gate number 1. This is by Ryan Cady, Christian Debari, and Simon Go. This is by Top Cow. Now, this one starts off with something that I thought was interesting, which is life, for the most part, is a product of the decisions you make. I think life in general is, I think we're all a few choices away from ruin, whether it's a few bad choices away from ruin, or even choices that we thought were good end up being bad. And it can really change our life for the worse. So we are all riding that line every single day on choices we make and how much it affects our lives. We can make a decision that will drastically change our life. Could be for the better or for the worse, but we're all riding that line of, we're all a few decisions away from just being in really bad straits. So in this one, we follow Mitchell. He gets on a train and has some choices to make for himself. We have a villain that's introduced, or at least an antagonist, and it was a little disappointing. It was, maybe because my Black Little Heart wasn't dark enough for me, but the story is told in the Depression era. So in that, the thing was like 1940s. So in that sense, I think it fit that time period. It made sense to have this character, this kind of villain or antagonist in that time period. But it wasn't very it wasn't very. It didn't have that impact of, you know, didn't have the villain that you're afraid of really. It just looked kind of goofy. The artwork was really good. I thought like I said, it fit the story, the colors, the kind of the tone, it all fit the same, that time period and the story that's being told. Overall, it wasn't bad. I just wasn't something that I'm crazy about. This is one that I will keep my eye on, and if I do see the second issue, I'll pick it up, but I won't seek it out. So I thought this was okay. That was fine. The next one is Batman City of Madness #1. This is by Christian Ward. Of course, this is by DC Comics. I saw this on the shelf, and I saw another Batman #1. And there's a Batman #1 I enjoyed quite a bit a few weeks ago, which was, let me see if I can find it here in my notes because I forget the title. I just am really bad with all the different titles, and I can't find it at the moment. But there was an issue a couple weeks ago, #1 that I really enjoyed. I believe it was a pick of the week. That but I do wonder, do we need more Batman books? I get they sell, and maybe that's why, because people like me buy them. So I'm part of the problem. For this one, the art is very stylized. I really like the artwork and the different panels, the different way that the different applications of the art. I thought it stood out. I really liked it. It was different. It has a very stylized feel to it, which I liked. It wasn't the same thing we always see. This story includes the Court of Owls, which was nice to see. During the New 52, I believe they were introduced to the New 52, the Court of Owls. And I'm a sucker for secret societies and things like that. And I think the secret society and that villain, I think, fits Gotham. It fits into the mythos of Gotham, because you think Gotham, and I think it adds some character. It makes Gotham a character to itself when you have these big long-term societies and things that were happening under Batman's nose that he never knew about until the last 10 years in our timeline. So I think that fits really well. I think it adds character to Gotham itself as a city. It makes Gotham feel alive in some way. The story doesn't really do anything new. It doesn't really do a whole lot that you don't expect to happen. It seems very, it's run-of-the-mill Batman story. There are there is some exploration of Alfred and some of his thoughts and his feelings on things. I thought that was nice. You don't get a whole lot of Alfred, not too often, usually when he's just being hurt. I've mentioned before about social commentary in books. I don't mind it. I'm not anti, if someone has a message, I guess that's fine. It's your book. Express what you want to express, how you want to express it. I'm not going to say someone shouldn't. But for me, when it's overt, it doesn't have the impact. And I've talked about this recently too. But when it's more subtle, I think it has more of an impact. When it makes you think and it makes you consider what you're reading, or kind of the story being told, and you wrap that story into the real life, into your life, into our real world, you can make parallels and you can think things through. When it is ripped out of the headlines, I think all of us are inundated now with news and headlines and bad news, that sometimes when you see it in a comic book, when it's ripped out of the headlines and you see the same issues going on in the comic book, in this other universe, sometimes it can be a little bit much. I think for me, I think there's something to be said about escapism. And not that this one was very overt with a message or a point they're trying to make. It wasn't very overt, but it was there, and it was a little heavy-handed. I think, like I said, be free to add in any social commentary you want. I think there's good things you can do with it, but when it's too close to home, then it just, sometimes you just want to get away from that stuff. And when I pick up a Batman book, I don't want to be reminded of I just want to escape for a little while. That's just me. You may disagree, and that's fine. So yeah, this one, I think, was fine. I think nothing really too groundbreaking, or nothing really that's going to compel me to pick up the second issue. So unfortunately, I won't be continuing with this one. I just, not one that I'm crazy about. Now, if you've been listening, you all know that Swan Songs has been, I think every week has been a pick of the week. Every time I've picked up a new issue, which fantastic series. This is number 4 by W. Maxwell Prince and Caitlin Yarsky on art. This is by Image Comics. This is the end of a sentence, and we follow a man who is just released from imprisonment, where he is out in the, gets released in the world, and he is constantly working on Happy Libs, which is, some of you maybe remember Mad Libs. I think they're still around, where you fill in a story and you make a funny story or whatever kind of story you want. You fill in nouns, verbs, action, whatever, you fill it in and it makes a story. And they're fun, especially on road trips. My kids enjoy them. So in this one, we do explore, what it's like for someone to come out of being incarcerated, coming back into the real life, coming back into the world that's moved on without them. Everyone else is living their lives, but you've been locked in a cage for however long it may be. And you come out and you have, you start to wonder, am I freer locked away, or am I freer in this world where I have all these other influences and, all these other people trying to influence me and pull me in different directions, and my perceived obligations of who I owe, or debts I may have to pay, or whatever it may be. So there is something to be said about what that must be like to come out of something like that and to come back into real life and have freedom. But is it really freedom? You start to wonder. So I think, our character gets wrapped up in some old habits, some old people that he was associated with before. And yeah, so I think you can kind of piece together what may happen here. I love these kind of stories. I'm a big fan of them, about, people being incarcerated, trying to change their lives when they get out, and just can't seem to get away from it. Like, they can't seem to escape that lifestyle that put them away in the first place. So I think that part of it was really interesting. The problem I had with this one was the end. I think the end was clever. I think the end was original. I think it took a risk. I liked it. I liked that they took a risk. I wasn't a fan of the ending. I can appreciate the fact that they took a shot, but overall, I just wasn't a huge fan of the ending. It kind of was a letdown for me, even if I can appreciate the shot they took. The next book is The Madness #3. This is by J. Michael Straczynski and art by ACO. This is by AWA Comics. This is more superhero/supervillain revenge goodness. Is she a villain or a hero at this point? I'm not sure if we really know anymore. The lines are pretty blurred, and that's what I like about it. The lines aren't very defined. So I'm a fan of that. We expand on the world. We learn more characters within the world. We learn more of the characters that will come into play later, and we learn a lot more about how far she's willing to go for revenge, which includes some torture, a lot of torture, and some torture cosplay too. So violent, angry revenge, also heartwarming and touching, and at the same time reflecting on what's happened and the things that have kind of processing those emotions of losing loved ones and the reason she's out for revenge in the first place. So yeah, this is a revenge. This is just more revenge, just out for revenge kind of story. And if you're a revenge story fan, I think you'll really enjoy this one. And yeah, I think it continues to scratch that itch, and I'm enjoying it. I think it's the only bad thing is that it's almost halfway over. So if I did have a pick of the week, this would have been it. But it just didn't blow me away. It was good. I liked it, but it wasn't something I would say is my pick of the week. I guess it would be if I had to choose. But yeah, I think my pick of the week will be something that I'm really enthusiastic about. Really something I want to tell you about. I want to celebrate. And while I enjoyed the last two books, I just don't know that they're pick of the week material. As sad as it is to say. So I hope you are all having a great week. If you'd like to read any of these books with me, visit our forums at pagechewing.com. We have a great little community there. Come by and register on the forums, and I have to approve your membership, so it may take me a little bit of time to see you, but I will approve your membership and come and chat with us and read with us. We have lots of group reads going on, lots of things planned. We plan to start Sandman soon, plan to start the Alan Moore Swamp Thing run, and we have some other books that we are going to continue. We also wrapped up Gideon Falls, and yeah, so check that out if you haven't already. So yeah, thank you for listening. Hope you're all having a great week. And if you have any suggestions or ideas for books, please let me know. I'd be happy to hear it and love to chat about it. Until then, we will talk to you soon.